My name is Ethan. I'm 38 years old, and until 6 months ago, I honestly believed I had a decent life. Not perfect, just decent. I had a stable job as a project manager for a construction company outside Chicago. I worked long hours, sometimes too long. My wife, Claire, liked to remind me of that every chance she got. According to her, I was boring, predictable, too nice. If I'm being honest, she had been saying things like that for years. At first, I laughed them off. Then I started believing them. Maybe I really wasn't exciting enough. Maybe I should work out more. Maybe I should dress better. Maybe I should surprise her with flowers more often. Every problem somehow became my fault. If she was unhappy, I wasn't trying hard enough. If she snapped at me, I had annoyed her. If she ignored me, I must have done something wrong. Looking back now, I realize I spent years apologizing for things that weren't even mistakes. Claire never apologized. Not once. She always had an excuse. And somehow, I always accepted it. Our 10th wedding anniversary was coming up. I wanted to do something special. So I booked a week-long vacation in Maui. Beachfront resort. Ocean view. Private balcony. The whole thing cost me almost $9,000. More money than I should have spent. But I wanted us to reconnect. Maybe get away from work. Maybe remember why we fell in love in the first place. When I surprised Claire with the reservation, she barely looked up from her phone. Maui. She shrugged. I guess that's fine. That's it. No smile. No hug. No thank you. Just, I guess that's fine. It stung. But I convinced myself she was tired. I always found excuses for her. There was one person who seemed happier about the trip than Claire. Her best friend. Jenna. God. I never liked Jenna. Not from the day I met her. She had this fake smile that never reached her eyes. Everything about her felt calculated. She could insult someone while sounding polite. It was almost impressive. Claire adored her. They talked every single day, sometimes for hours. Whenever Jenna came over, I became the joke. Ethan probably irons his socks. They'd laugh. Ethan looks like he'd apologize if someone hit his car. More laughter. One night Jenna looked right at me and said, "You know why Claire married you?" I smiled awkwardly. "No, because you're safe." Claire laughed so hard she nearly spilled her wine. Safe. Not loving. Not kind. Not dependable. Safe. Like I was some boring appliance. I laughed too. What else was I supposed to do? The flight to Hawaii was almost 9 hours. Claire barely spoke to me. She spent most of the trip texting. Every few minutes. Buzz. 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 She smiled at her screen more than she smiled at me the entire week before. Who keeps texting you? I asked casually. She locked her phone instantly. Work. On vacation? My office doesn't stop existing because we're flying. Fair enough. At least, that's what I told myself. When we reached the resort, I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. Palm trees, blue water, warm breeze. It felt unreal. I wanted to enjoy it. Claire looked around for maybe 30 seconds before saying, "The room looked bigger online." Seriously? That was her first comment. Not, "This is beautiful." Not, "I'm glad we're here." Just criticism. Again. The first evening, we had dinner overlooking the ocean. Candles. Live music. Perfect sunset. I tried making conversation. "Remember our honeymoon?" She sighed. "Barely. You don't remember?" "I remember you talking too much." She took another sip of wine without even looking at me. That hurt more than I'd admit. The next morning, she wanted to go shopping. Designer stores. Jewelry. Handbags. I wasn't thrilled. But I went. Every time I suggested something I wanted to do. Snorkeling. Hiking. Boat tour. She rolled her eyes. "We can do your old man activities later." Old man. I was 38. Around lunchtime, we ran into Jenna. My stomach dropped. "What are the odds?" Claire screamed with excitement. She hugged Jenna like they hadn't seen each other in years. I stood there confused. "You didn't tell me Jenna was coming." Claire answered without looking at me. "I didn't think it mattered." Jenna smirked. "Don't worry, Ethan. We promised not to ruin your little vacation." Something about the way she said it. It felt rehearsed. Like this wasn't a coincidence. From that point on, it wasn't our vacation anymore. It became their vacation. I was just paying for it. Breakfast? Jenna joined us. Pool? Jenna. Shopping? Jenna. Cocktails? Jenna. Dinner? Jenna. Everywhere. Every single day. The worst part wasn't even that Claire ignored me. It was how the two of them acted together. They whispered, looked at me, started laughing, stopped talking whenever I walked closer. One afternoon, I came back with drinks. As soon as they noticed me, silence. Then fake smiles. Claire reached for her drink. Thanks. Didn't even look me in the eyes. That evening we sat around the resort fire pit. A couple nearby was celebrating their engagement. The guy surprised his fiancée with a ring. She cried. Everyone clapped. I smiled. Claire leaned toward Jenna. Not quietly enough. I'd die if Ethan ever tried something that cheesy. Jenna laughed. I'd say no just to watch him panic. Both of them burst into laughter. Right in front of me. I just stared into the fire. My face felt hot. I don't think either of them noticed. Or cared. Later that night, Claire wanted another drink. She handed me her empty glass. Can you grab me another mojito? No, please. No smile. Just an order. I nodded. Because that's what I always did. On the way back from the bar, I couldn't find them. The fire pit was empty. The lounge chairs were empty. I figured they had gone back to the room. As I walked toward the elevators, I heard Claire's voice coming from the garden pathway behind the hotel. She wasn't laughing anymore. She sounded different, quiet, almost excited. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Honestly, I just heard my own name. So I stopped walking. There were palm trees between us. I couldn't see her, only hear her. Claire said softly, "No, he's completely clueless." A man's voice didn't answer. Instead, Jenna laughed. That cold laugh I had always hated. Claire continued, "I told you he'll never figure it out." My heart skipped. Figure what out? I took one slow step closer. The ocean waves crashed behind the hotel. I could barely hear them now. Then Claire said the sentence that changed my life forever. "After this trip, I'm finally leaving him." And Jenna answered, "Just make sure he signs everything before he knows about Ryan." I froze. Ryan? Who the hell was Ryan? I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I simply stood there in the darkness, realizing that the vacation I'd spent months planning had never been about saving my marriage. For Claire, it had been the final act before destroying it. I don't know how long I stood there. 5 seconds. Maybe a minute. It felt like time had stopped. The only thing I could hear was the ocean crashing against the rocks and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Ryan. Who the hell was Ryan? I wanted to step out from behind those palm trees. I wanted to ask Claire what she meant. I wanted to look Jenna straight in the eyes and ask why she had been laughing at me for years. Instead, I stayed perfectly still. Something deep inside me told me not to move. Not yet. Claire spoke again. "I've been patient long enough." Jenna chuckled. "You've been patient because he pays for everything." They both laughed quietly. My stomach twisted. Claire let out an annoyed sigh. "Exactly. That's why I told Ryan to wait until after this vacation." Ryan. There it was again. Not a coworker. Not a cousin. Not some random guy. The way she said his name. It sounded familiar. Comfortable. Like she'd been saying it for a long time. Jenna lowered her voice. "So, are you finally going to tell Ethan?" Claire laughed. "Why would I?" Another laugh. "He'll figure it out after the papers are signed." I felt my knees go weak. The papers? What papers? Divorce papers? Something else? Jenna spoke again. "Just don't screw it up. Ryan says you need Ethan calm." Claire answered immediately. "Oh, please. Ethan apologizes when people bump into him." Another burst of laughter. I closed my eyes. That one hurt. Because it was true. I hated conflict. I always tried to keep the peace. Claire had known that from the day we met. Maybe she had been using it against me the whole time. I slowly backed away before they could see me. Every step felt heavier than the last. By the time I reached the elevator, my hands were shaking. When I got back to our room, I locked myself in the bathroom. I turned on the faucet so Claire wouldn't hear me if she came back. Then I looked in the mirror. I barely recognized the man staring back at me. He looked exhausted, confused, broken. I kept asking myself the same question. How long? How long had this been happening? Weeks? Months? Years? Had I missed every warning sign? Or had I simply refused to see them? About 20 minutes later, I heard the hotel room door open. Claire walked in humming to herself. "Honey." I stepped out of the bathroom. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It looked rehearsed. "There you are." She walked over and kissed me on the cheek. The first kiss she'd given me since we arrived. It made my skin crawl. "You disappeared. I went looking for you." "Oh." She shrugged. "Jenna and I wanted to take a walk." Just like that. A lie. Straight to my face. I forced myself to smile. I figured. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You look tired." "Long flight." She nodded. "Makes sense." Then she grabbed her phone. Again. Buzz. Smile. Type. Buzz. Smile. Type. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. That night, I barely slept. Claire was beside me, peacefully asleep. At least she looked peaceful. I lay there staring at the ceiling. Every little moment from the last few years came rushing back. The sudden business trips. The password changes. The late-night work calls. The weekends when Jenna insisted on having girls' nights. I remembered every time I questioned something. Every single time. Claire always had the same answer. You're being insecure. You don't trust me. You're imagining things. Eventually, I stopped asking questions. Maybe that's exactly what she wanted. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She stretched, smiled. Let's rent jet skis today. For the first time in years. I looked at her and saw a stranger. Not my wife. Not the woman I married. Just someone playing a role. Around noon, she announced she was meeting Jenna for lunch. You don't have to come. Her exact words. You'll probably be bored. I nodded. No problem. She smiled. Thanks for understanding. The second the hotel room door closed, I moved. My heart was racing. I hated invading someone's privacy. I had never gone through Claire's things before. Not once. But I wasn't looking for gossip anymore. I was looking for the truth. Her suitcase sat open near the closet. Clothes. Makeup. Shoes. Nothing unusual. Then I noticed a small zipper compartment tucked inside the lining. I'd never seen it before. Inside was a folded envelope. No name. No address. Just papers. I unfolded them carefully. They weren't divorce papers. They were financial statements. Our joint savings. Retirement accounts. Investment accounts. Someone had highlighted nearly every asset we owned. Several sticky notes were attached. One read, transfer after closing. Another said, attorney confirmed. I felt sick. This wasn't an emotional decision. This was a plan. A detailed one. Months in the making. I quickly put everything back exactly where I'd found it. If Claire realized I'd looked, she'd know I was onto her. I couldn't let that happen. Not yet. That afternoon, I found myself sitting alone by the beach. I wasn't even watching the waves. I was thinking about every sacrifice I'd made. Working overtime. Skipping vacations. Putting money away for our future. Our future. Apparently, it had never been ours. Someone sat beside me. I looked up. An older man. Probably in his late 60s. Sunburned. Fishing hat. Kind eyes. He nodded toward the ocean. Beautiful day. Yeah. You don't sound convinced. I forced a smile. Just thinking. He laughed softly. Thinking usually means trouble. I didn't answer. After a long silence, he said something I still remember. Sometimes people tell you who they are long before you're willing to believe them. Then he stood up. Wish me a good day. And walked away. Simple words. But they hit me harder than he could have imagined. That evening, Claire insisted we all have dinner together. Her, Jenna, and me. Jenna was in a fantastic mood. She couldn't stop smiling. So, Ethan. She sipped her wine. Having fun. I am. Really? She smirked. You seem distracted. Claire interrupted. He's always distracted. The two of them exchanged another look. I noticed it this time. Not a friendly glance. More like they were checking whether the other understood something. Some private joke. Some shared secret. I stayed quiet. The less I said, the more they talked. That was becoming clear. Halfway through dinner, Jenna's phone buzzed. She looked down, then quickly flipped it over. Claire noticed. They locked eyes. Just for a second. Then Claire smiled. An almost invisible smile. But I caught it. Later, while Jenna went to the restroom, Claire's phone lit up on the table. She had walked a few feet away to take a picture of the sunset. The screen lit up for only a second. Just enough. A notification appeared. No message preview. Just a name. Ryan Redhart. My chest tightened. Before I could react, Claire came back. She picked up the phone so quickly, it was almost instinct. She looked at me. For a split second, I thought she knew. But then she smiled. Ready to head back? I nodded. Inside, I wasn't ready for anything. Because now I knew one thing for certain. Ryan wasn't just a name I'd overheard in the dark. He was real. And whatever was happening was far bigger than I'd imagined. I didn't confront Claire. Not because I was afraid. Because for the first time in my life, I realized I was completely outnumbered. If I accused her now, she'd deny everything. Jenna would back her up. I'd be the paranoid husband. The insecure guy. The fool. No. I needed the truth. The whole truth. So I decided to do something I'd never done before. I shut up. The next morning, Claire woke up unusually cheerful. She even smiled at me. Good morning. That caught me off guard. She hadn't been this friendly since we got to Hawaii. You sleep okay? She asked. Yeah. I was thinking maybe we should spend today together. I almost laughed. 2 days ago, she barely wanted to be in the same room as me. Now suddenly she wanted quality time? Something had changed. Or maybe someone had told her to keep me distracted. We had breakfast overlooking the beach. She actually asked me questions. How work was going. Whether I wanted another coffee. If I wanted to book a sunset cruise. It all felt fake. Every smile looked rehearsed. Every laugh sounded forced. I answered politely. Inside, I was studying her. Every movement. Every glance toward her phone. Every nervous habit. And then I noticed something. She kept checking the time. Every few minutes. Almost like she was waiting for something. Or someone. Around 11, Jenna appeared. Oh my God. Claire stood up immediately. I completely forgot we were meeting you. Forgot? 5 minutes ago she had asked if I wanted to spend the whole day together. Jenna smiled at me. Sorry, Ethan. Girl time. Claire grabbed her purse. We won't be long. I watched them leave. Neither of them looked back. This time, I followed them. Not close enough to be noticed. Just far enough to keep them in sight. They walked through the shopping district before turning toward the marina. My heart started racing. Why the marina? They weren't dressed for a boat trip. Claire suddenly stopped. She hugged someone. A man. Tall. Athletic. Dark hair. I couldn't see his face clearly. But I didn't need to. I already knew. Ryan. Claire wrapped both arms around him. Not the kind of hug you'd give an old friend. It lasted several seconds. Jenna stood nearby, smiling like she'd just watched the happiest couple in the world reunite. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I ducked behind a souvenir stand before anyone noticed me. I wanted to leave. I really did. But my feet wouldn't move. They started walking together. Ryan put his hand gently on Claire's back. She didn't pull away. She leaned closer. Laughing. Smiling. Looking happier than I'd seen her in years. I couldn't remember the last time she'd looked at me that way. I followed them for another block. Then they entered a small cafe near the harbor. I stayed outside. The windows were open. I couldn't hear every word. Only pieces. Almost done. After next month. House. Lawyer. He suspects nothing. Then Jenna laughed. He's the easiest man I've ever met. Ryan shook his head. I almost feel bad. Claire rolled her eyes. Don't. He'll survive. That sentence echoed inside my head. He'll survive. 10 years together. Countless memories. Thousands of sacrifices. Reduced to 4 words. I walked away before I completely lost control. The heat suddenly felt unbearable. Tourists walked past me smiling. Kids were eating ice cream. Couples were taking pictures. The whole island looked like paradise. But my world had fallen apart. Back at the resort, I sat alone on the balcony. For over an hour. I kept replaying everything. The phone calls. The hidden documents. Ryan. Jenna. The lies. The fake smiles. It wasn't just an affair. It was a plan. A carefully planned exit. And I had been paying for the vacation they were celebrating on. When Claire came back that afternoon, she looked sunburned. Relaxed. Happy. She tossed her sunglasses onto the table. You should have come. Yeah. It was fun. I'll bet. She looked at me. What does that mean? Nothing. She stared for another second. Then shrugged. You've been acting weird. I almost laughed. Weird? She had another man waiting for her at the marina. But I was the weird one. That evening she spent almost an hour getting ready for dinner. New dress. New perfume. Perfect makeup. I couldn't remember the last time she'd put that much effort into going out with me. When she finished, she looked in the mirror and smiled. Not at me. At herself. You ready? She asked. I'll catch up. She frowned. Why? I've got a headache. She sighed dramatically. Seriously, Ethan? You always ruin everything. There it was. The real Claire. Cold. Dismissive. Nothing was ever her fault. She grabbed her purse. Fine. I'm not staying in because you're in a bad mood. The door slammed behind her. I waited exactly 5 minutes. Then I followed. Not to the restaurant. To the marina. Some instinct told me that's where she'd be. I was right. From a distance, I saw Jenna standing near the dock, pretending to scroll through her phone. She wasn't waiting for a boat. She was watching. Keeping lookout. A few seconds later, Claire appeared. Ryan stepped out from behind a parked SUV. He smiled. She kissed him on the cheek before pulling him into a long embrace. My chest tightened. Not because of the hug. Because of how natural it looked. like they'd done it 100 times before. I quickly raised my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Click. One photo. Then another. Then another. Ryan holding Claire's hand. Claire smiling at him. Ryan touching her face. For the first time since this nightmare began, I had something real. Not suspicions. Not overheard conversations. Evidence. I lowered the phone. My heart was pounding. I should have left. Instead, I looked up one last time. And that's when Jenna saw me. Her smile disappeared instantly. Our eyes met across the parking lot. She didn't look surprised. She looked concerned. She immediately turned toward Claire, raised her voice, and pointed directly at me. Claire spun around. Our eyes locked. For one long second. No words. No excuses. No pretending. She knew. I knew. And there was no going back. For a second, nobody moved. Claire stood there with Ryan beside her. Jenna had one hand on Claire's arm. I was standing about 50 yards away with my phone still in my hand. The ocean breeze carried the sound of the boats rocking against the docks. Everything else felt silent. Claire was the first to move. She walked toward me with quick, angry steps. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Angry. What the hell are you doing? She demanded. I looked at her. I think the better question is, what are you doing? She glanced at my phone. Delete those pictures. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Her first concern was the pictures. I said delete them. No. Her jaw tightened. You don't have permission to photograph me. I actually laughed. It wasn't because anything was funny. It was because my brain couldn't process how detached from reality she sounded. I've spent 10 years paying bills with you, I said quietly. I just watched you hug another man. And your concern is whether I took a picture? Ryan finally walked over. He held both hands up. Hey man, let's calm down. I looked him in the eye. So you're Ryan. He nodded once. Yeah. He looked uncomfortable. Not terrified. Not nervous. Just uncomfortable. Like this conversation was an inconvenience. Claire crossed her arms. Ethan, you're making a scene. A scene. I stared at her. You've been lying to me for God knows how long. She rolled her eyes. Can we not do this here? There it was again. That dismissive tone. As if I were interrupting her schedule. As a matter of fact, I said, we're going to do this right here. People nearby had started noticing us. A few tourists slowed down. Nobody came closer. Ryan took a deep breath. I think I should leave. Claire grabbed his wrist. No. Then she looked at me. You already know, don't you? I nodded. I heard your conversation 2 nights ago. For the first time all week. The color drained from her face. You were listening? I wasn't trying to. Jenna stepped forward. Oh, spare us the innocent act. I ignored her. Claire looked away toward the water. Then she sighed. I guess it doesn't matter anymore. That sentence hit me harder than if she'd screamed. It doesn't matter anymore. 10 years of marriage. Reduced to that. I swallowed hard. How long? She didn't answer. Claire. She finally looked back at me. About a year. A year. I repeated it silently in my head. 365 days. Birthdays. Christmas. Anniversary dinners. Family barbecues. Every memory from the past year suddenly felt fake. Ryan spoke quietly. We didn't mean for it to happen. I looked at him. You knew she was married. He didn't answer. Because there wasn't an answer. Claire rubbed her temples. I'm tired of pretending. Pretending. That word echoed in my head. So every vacation, every dinner, every I love you. She shrugged. I cared about you once. Once. Past tense. The words landed like bricks. I felt something inside me crack. Not explode. Just break. Slowly. Completely. I took a long breath. So why stay? Her answer came instantly. Security. She didn't even hesitate. The house. The savings. The insurance. I wasn't going to leave until everything was organized. I stared at her. She had just admitted it. No excuses. No fake tears. Nothing. Pure calculation. Jenna folded her arms. I told you he'd eventually figure it out. Claire shot her an irritated look. This isn't helping. Oh, come on, Jenna replied. It was only a matter of time. I finally turned toward Jenna. I've always wondered something. She smirked. What? What did I ever do to you? For the first time, she didn't have an immediate answer. Instead, she shrugged. Nothing. Then why spend years trying to make me feel like garbage? She looked almost bored. Because you made everything too easy. I frowned. What does that even mean? She laughed once. You never pushed back. You never argued. You let Claire walk all over you. You practically volunteered to be taken advantage of. I shook my head. No. I trusted my wife. Jenna's smile disappeared. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Finally, I looked back at Claire. Was any of it real? She hesitated. Long enough to tell me the answer. There were good years. Good years. Maybe for me. Apparently not for her. I reached into my pocket. Slowly removed my wedding ring. Held it in my hand. It suddenly felt heavier than it ever had before. I looked at it for a moment. Then placed it gently on the dock railing between us. I'm done. Claire blinked. That's it. I nodded. That's it. She almost seemed disappointed. Like she'd expected me to yell. To beg. To cry. Instead, I felt strangely calm. Not because I wasn't hurting. Because there was nothing left to save. Ryan looked down at the ring. Claire looked at me one last time. You're really walking away? I met her eyes. No. You walked away a long time ago. I just finally caught up. I turned around. Started walking toward the hotel. I didn't look back. Not once. Behind me, I heard someone call my name. Then again, I kept walking. The sun was beginning to set over the water. For the first time since arriving in Hawaii, I wasn't wondering how to fix my marriage. I was wondering how to rebuild my life. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I wanted Claire back. That was the strange part. A few weeks earlier, I would have done anything to save my marriage. I would have apologized. I would have changed. I would have blamed myself. But sitting alone in that hotel room, looking at the empty side of the bed, I finally understood something. I wasn't mourning the woman Claire had become. I was mourning the woman I thought she was. There was a difference. The hardest thing to accept wasn't that she betrayed me. It was realizing that I had been fighting for a version of her that didn't exist anymore. The next morning, I packed my bags. Claire came back to the room around 8 a.m. She looked exhausted. For the first time since we arrived, she didn't look confident. She looked worried. Ethan, I kept folding my clothes. Don't. She stopped. What? Don't start explaining. She looked frustrated. You don't even know what I was going to say. I know. I zipped my suitcase. You were going to tell me that it wasn't simple. That things were complicated. That you were unhappy. She looked away. Because I was right. Maybe I was unhappy. I nodded. Maybe you were. I looked at her. But you had choices. You could have talked to me. You could have left. You could have been honest. My voice started shaking. But you chose to lie. Silence. For once. Claire had nothing to say. The flight home was the longest flight of my life. Not because of the distance. Because I was sitting next to someone who used to be my entire world. And now she felt like a stranger. Neither of us spoke much. When we landed, we went our separate ways. Same airport. Same city. Different lives. The first week back home was brutal. The house felt different. Every room had memories. The kitchen where we cooked together. The living room where we watched movies. The backyard where we planned our future. Except, I was the only one planning it. Claire had apparently been planning her exit. A few days later, I met with a lawyer. I had never imagined myself sitting in a divorce attorney's office. I always thought people who got divorced were people who couldn't make things work. I never thought I would be one of them. The attorney looked through the documents I had found. Then he looked at me. Ethan, you need to understand something. What? This wasn't just an affair. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? He tapped the papers. These notes show planning. Financial planning. Asset movement. She wasn't just thinking about leaving. She was preparing. I stared at the desk. Even though I already knew. Hearing someone else say it made it real. A few weeks later, Claire tried to contact me. At first, it was angry messages. You are overreacting. Then emotional ones. I miss you. Then confused ones. I don't understand why you're being so cold. That last one bothered me. Because I wasn't being cold. I was finally protecting myself. Something I should have done a long time ago. One evening, Jenna called me. I almost didn't answer. But I did. What do you want? There was silence. Not the confident Jenna I knew. A quieter version. I just wanted to say. She stopped. I waited. Things got out of control. I laughed softly. Things? You mean the year-long relationship? She sighed. Ethan. No. I interrupted. You don't get to make this sound like an accident. Another silence. Finally, she said. Claire made her choices. That sentence surprised me. Because for once, Jenna wasn't defending her. Maybe even she realized there was no excuse left. Months passed. The divorce was finalized. The house was sold. The life we built together became something that existed only in memories. People kept asking me if I hated Claire. The truth? I didn't. Hate is exhausting. And Claire had already taken enough from me. I didn't want to give her my peace too. I started rebuilding. Small things at first. I went hiking. Something Claire always called boring. I reconnected with old friends. People I had slowly stopped seeing because my marriage became my entire world. I started cooking again. I started laughing again. I started becoming someone I recognized. 6 months after that vacation, I returned to Hawaii. Alone. Same beach. Same ocean. Different person. I stood there remembering the man who arrived there hoping to save his marriage. He was desperate. He was confused. He was broken. But he was also the person who finally opened his eyes. And honestly, I was grateful to him because he made the hardest decision of his life. He chose himself. Sometimes people think betrayal destroys you. And maybe at first, it does. It breaks your plans. It changes your future. It makes you question everything. But eventually, you realize something. Someone leaving your life doesn't mean your life is over. Sometimes it means you finally have room to build the life you were supposed to have. I lost a wife. I lost a marriage. I lost the future I imagined. But I found something I hadn't had in years. Peace. And that was worth more than anything I lost.